Let's flip over to Luke 9. And in Luke 9, we're going to pick up where you guys left off last week. Up to this point, we've seen Jesus heal a centurion's kid. We saw him raise a widow's son. We saw him calm the storm. He healed a demoniac, a guy that was living in the grave. He raised a little girl from the dead, but was interrupted just before doing that to stop a woman from bleeding who had been bleeding for years and years and years. Not long after that, we see him feed 5,000 with just a few fish and a couple of loaves of bread. And then the disciples got to witness this transfiguration. Jesus is hanging out on a mountain, and God comes down and says, "This is my son, whom I'm well pleased." Then we saw most recently in the passage that he healed a demon-possessed boy. Now, in the midst of this, all this awesome work that Jesus was doing, his disciples had been hanging around with him. Like, he called them off the shore as they fished, and he said, "Come with me." And they went with him. Um, and as they did, they saw some pretty amazing things happen. And yet, they didn't get it all. So last week, they began to argue, like, who's the greatest? Is it him? Is it me? This is the same guys who just recently were in the boat freaking out because they were like, "We're going to die." And then now it's like, "But maybe I'm better than you." And so we pick up with this passage, which I think starts really interesting. In verse 49, it says, John answered. So he's responding to something. Let me read through the passage. Don't explore that again. John answered, "Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he does not follow with us." But Jesus said to him, "Do not stop him, for the one who is not against you is for you." Verse 51, when the days drew near for him to be taken up, Jesus to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers ahead of him who went and entered the village of the Samaritans to make preparations for him. But the people, the Samaritans, did not receive him because his face was set toward Jerusalem. And when his disciples, James and John, saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But Jesus turned, and he rebuked them. And they went on to another village. This is Luke 9:49 to 56. Let me pray. God, your word is a powerful thing. It's an unchanging thing. You are unchanging. You have chosen to speak to us through your word. And so as we explore this passage for a few minutes together, God, I ask that you would prick our hearts, that you would expand our minds and our understanding of who you are and how you love, what you want to do in and through us as individuals living on the west side of Pensacola. You may just desire us to be faithful where we are, but you may in fact send us somewhere else. So give us open hands, ready feet to go and to speak of your good news wherever we get to be. And temper us by your kind spirit, your generosity, so that we can be effective where we are and that your name may be made great. In Jesus' name, amen. So John answered. It's fascinating. He responded, he answered, he replied. So Jesus said, like, the greatest among you is the one who serves the most. The one who is the servant of all is the greatest of all. And the Bible Project guys, they talk often about this upside down kingdom that Jesus established. And so all of a sudden you've got John hearing, hold on, wait, the greatest is the least. And then he says, "Well, what about that guy? Like, we stopped that guy. Master, we saw someone casting demons in your name. We tried to stop him because he does not follow with us. He's not part of us. So maybe we're not as great as you are, Jesus, but surely we're better than them." And no shade. They saw all these amazing things, and just like us, they don't get it all. You have gaps. I have gaps. There are things that I don't understand. So one of my mottos is stay as close to the cross as possible. If we get into secondary, tertiary issues regarding, predestination or when Jesus is coming, but I don't know. I know that tomorrow I need to be obedient. I know that right now Jesus wants to speak hope and life into you. And I know that because in Hebrews 10, one of my life verses, it talks about figure out how to spur one another on toward love and good deeds. And don't forget to get together. Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. That's a practical thing I can do. 1 Corinthians 13. I can be a loud banging cymbal. At the end of the day, if I'm not full of love and kindness, if I'm not representing Christ in a way that he wants to be represented, he's probably going to rebuke me, just like we'll see him do in a few minutes. So this is what I know. So I stay as close as I can to the cross. And I think those who stick to the close to the cross, the grace and the mercy that's poured on us, it's easy for us to include others. But when I start to get in my little camp and I start to see you as an outsider and I'm an insider, I'm part of the group. Hey, I was up on the mountain with Jesus. You didn't get to do that. I did. Uh, if I see him heal someone and I'm like, I'm here. And in the Baptist tradition, we baptize someone when they place their faith in Jesus on their own accord. And so at the age of 5, I got baptized right back there. 76 was the year, and it was in the fall. Um, I entered several years of confusion, and I was taken back there by Kent Thaxton to pray and to explore and figure out, is what happened at 5 real? He's like, buddy, if you don't remember, you need to give your heart and life to Christ. So I did. I might have gotten baptized here again. I don't remember, to be honest. But I do remember sitting back there at age 16, listening to Dean Hinton sit right here. He was about to be a deacon in the church. And he said, hey, I've asked Jesus into my heart like 42 times this week. And I was like, what is happening? I mean, I'm a teenager. I'm hanging out. I don't hear a lot. But when someone says they asked Jesus into their heart again and again and again, I was like, what's happening? I don't get this at all. And he finished by saying, here's the deal. When I gave my heart and life to Christ, that was a work that he did in me. It's not by works so that no one could boast, Ephesians 2:8-9. That's a work that God did. And he initiated that work way before I was even aware of it. Romans 5, verse 8, verse 6 and 7. Maybe somebody would die for a good person if they were especially good. But Christ died for us while we were yet sinners. And so I sat back there at 16 and realized that work that God did for me at 5 cannot be undone. That is a work that he has done. And if you are today sitting here and you're doubting, like, I know I'm not doing all the right things. If you're doubting who God is and the work that he's done, I just plead with you. Spend some time in his word. Spend some time like the dad who's like, help me in my unbelief. Just let God come and minister to you. And honestly, it's okay to doubt. It's okay. For the rest of your life, you may be plagued by doubt because you are a sinner just like me. I'm supposed to be a sin out one who goes and is a faithful follower of Jesus in a faraway place. I did Royal Ambassadors and sat right back there between the two buildings and built a birdhouse. And I learned from Mr. Andrew how to be a follower of Jesus Christ in something called Royal Ambassadors. This little teaching program so that when I was a little guy like you guys, God began to place in my heart what it meant to be a holy man. And he placed in me a desire to do that. So then when I fast forward and I'm 20 something and I'm not doing all the awesome, I'm doing a lot of selfish things, doubt began to just work its way into my heart, in my life. Fast forward, I'm doing a youth group in North India with some of the other workers' kids that lived in that part of the world. And I said again and again to them, like, your faith has to be your own. And that's what you have to do too. If you begin to act like a Christian, you will feel like a Christian. If you aren't acting like one, you're not going to feel like one. If you're married and you don't go home very often, You're not going to feel very married, are you? But when you get home and the wife reminds you, hey, I'd love it if you could do this, you're like, oh, I'm married. This is the opportunity I have to serve and to love her and to change the light bulb in the bathroom so she can do her makeup. That's the opportunity and the privilege that I have. And when I go home, I feel like I'm married. And it is a beautiful, amazing, awesome thing. And when I was a kid, I would be right in the middle of like a show, which you couldn't watch again. Let's be real. I missed many a growing pains because in the middle, I needed to take out the trash. And I'm like, Mom, really? Right now? She's like, Dad, do what your mom said. So I got up and missed the show and took the trash out. I'm not bitter. Obedience isn't always convenient, but it's always good. So I say that to say, in the Baptist tradition, we baptize. I don't know that Mother Teresa ever got baptized by immersion, but would you doubt that she was a faithful saint who was giving her life for the poor in Kolkata, India? Absolutely not. So when they were asking, hey, Jesus, we tried to stop him. And Jesus is like, whoa, 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 hold up. If he's not against us, he's for us. He was casting out demons. Now, remember, just a few minutes ago, some of the disciples who recently had been sent out and were given the power to cast out demons and these kind of things, they come down. Jesus comes down off the transfiguration. They're standing around talking. And one of the dads is like, look, these dudes can't do it. They can't drive out the demon. So Jesus says, I'll take care of it. Sometimes it's just by prayer, right? So you remember this from a few weeks ago. Now we're looking, and this dude's on the outside. He's not following along with us, and he's casting out demons. So we tried to stop him, and Jesus says, don't. You guys are not the only believers in the world. Just because you're in this church or you're even Baptist doesn't mean you're the only believers. So we need to be real careful about where we draw our lines and who we consider in, who we consider out. As a sent out one, we often have to figure out who we can team with because when you live in a city of 24 million like we did for several years, our little camp isn't going to it's not going to happen with just us. So what we've tried to do is if you say you're a follower of Jesus, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to get alongside with you and I want to disciple you or I want to serve with you. And we'll work out all the other stuff, whether you cuss or don't cuss, whether you baptize or you get sprinkled, whether you speak in tongues or don't speak in tongues. These are all secondary, tertiary issues. Is your life submitted to Christ? Our understanding will fail. It will. And there are times when we can't completely partner with someone. But let me tell you, if we try and we only agree and therefore we only get along with the little people in our particular circle, your circle is going to be real small. In fact, it's probably going to be right there in your particular seat because isn't anybody in here that agrees with you 100%. So let us expand our view and understanding of who it is that God wants in his kingdom. And it's the guy that lives across the street who's mean to you. Yeah, Jesus wants him too. And maybe you are the key to seeing him come to Christ. How we do that? It will depend. But we can't exclude those that we perceive are on the outside. Because ultimately, if I did that, I wouldn't have a job. I'm going out to see the lost come to Christ. That's what I do for a living. That's who I am. That's like at the core of my being. So why would I then, with a brother or a sister who's very close to where I am, want to separate from them? I'm not calling us all to be one church. Don't hear anything heretical like this. But I am saying whenever we're out and we're serving the community, it can be with more than just the people in your church. It should be. We need to be careful about where we draw our lines. And I think that's what we're learning from this passage. Let's go on. Verse 51, when the days drew near for Jesus to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers ahead of him who went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make preparations for him. But the people did not receive him because his face was set toward Jerusalem. And when his disciples, well, we'll stop there. So, rewind. Back in the day, there was some separation, and the Jews and the Samaritans didn't get along. When Jesus walks over and he sits with the woman at the well, she was a Samaritan. And she drew the lines pretty good. She said, look, you guys say we're supposed to worship there, and we say we're supposed to worship here. And Jesus' response was, yeah, that's secondary. You need living water, and I am the living water. So we want to make sure that we're staying real close to what it is that God has done on our behalf. Because inevitably, as we're going to see, these sectarian lines or people group lines or country lines that we have made up, they don't matter in the kingdom. God's calling our brothers and sisters in Asia and South America and in Europe. We're all going to be standing around the throne. Like Revelation 7:9 talks about people from every language, tribe, tongue, like people from all over the world. We're going to be standing together. So, but because at that time, the Samaritans and Jews were not getting along very well, when Jesus wanted to go and hang out in a Samaritan village, they were like, no, we're good. Thanks. Go on. His face was set, and it cost him. It cost him a place to stay that night. They had to go on to another village. And rightly so, the disciples are like, yeah. Hey, Jesus, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them? Like they're for their guy. They're like, let's go, Jesus. And he's like, hold on, wait just a second. Like, I'm not against them. Just because they're against me doesn't mean I have to be against them. Just because your neighbor, your coworker doesn't like you doesn't mean that you get to dislike them. In fact, you are called to love them. As you go, make disciples. Matthew 28. That's for all of us. As you go, wherever it is you're going, out to the station, over to the fire station, out to work, out to get your mail, down to Kroger. Sorry, do you guys have Kroger here? Publix, Winn-Dixie, insert your particular Aldi, whatever it is you like to go to. That's the place that God's calling. You have the privilege of speaking on behalf. You are an ambassador, just like I'm an ambassador. And we get to represent a God who does not immediately call down fire, but wants to have compassion on them. Now, I talked about being rebuked when I was a little one. Happened frequently. Hey, Mom, sorry I broke that. I know I lied to you and you knew that it was me, but I didn't know this because I'm 5 and I think that my lie is going to suffice and you're not going to really know. So I'm at her bedside. Hey, Mom, I just need to tell you I broke it. Very tender, compassionate heart, but also like fragile and uncertain. You have the privilege of helping someone else understand while they are still sinners, Christ died for them. While they are sinners, Christ died for them. But the disciples in verse 55, but he turned and he rebuked them. They didn't get it at all. Now, no doubt, as they went on to another village, verse 56, they were probably like tail between their legs, walking along. I was. When I got rebuked, when I got called out, or when I was corrected, it never felt good. It still doesn't feel good. But it's my privilege, Hebrews 10, 24 and 25, to spur you on toward love and good deeds, which may at times be uncomfortable. So what does it look like for you when you get rebuked? What does it look like for you when the God who loves you and is compassionate to you and invites you to be with him tells you that you're not right, convicts you of sin? Sometimes the conviction of sin came when my mom from the choir was like, stop, I see you talking on the second row. Sometimes it's a little more nuanced, but I'm just not sure. Like I have a check in my spirit. This isn't something I need to be doing. You may not have experienced any of that. I don't know where you are in your faith journey. So let me just invite you to consider a work that God has done for you. For most of us, we won't be called to go. We won't be called to serve full time in a church or anything like that. That's okay. I've been sent, we've done all these things, but ultimately, I was an IT guy working in West Africa. I just worked on computers. Where we are now, I'm a therapist, I'm a counselor, I do pastoral, I just care for people. My main job hasn't been what Mitch has done. This is unusual for me. I'm a teacher sometimes, but most of the time, I go visit people where they live, hang out with them, and try and encourage them. Whatever steps of obedience you've already taken, you may be at a place today when God's saying, yeah, you got it right in 8 out of the 10 things, but you remember, I asked you to do that. I want to encourage you today is a day to be obedient. And so if there's a small change you need to make, please step into that place of obedience. Take the next step. If you've been praying for that neighbor again and again, make some cookies, take it over. If you've got a broken relationship, do your part, which may be praying, but it may be speaking. It may be humiliating yourself and going to try and make things right again. But for some of you, this is kind of foreign. As a spiritual person, which you are, you may be spiritually dead. You may not have the Spirit of God living in you yet. And I want to invite you to do that. Came home after David Schaffner stood here and preached under this tie and preached about hell and damnation and the consequences of sin. And I was scared to death. And I went home and I said, hey, Mom, I don't want to go to hell. And my mom said, well, you know that you deserve to go to hell. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know if you remember this, but I very clearly remember she's like, hey, sweetie, I'm so sorry, but you're a sinner. And that's the consequences of sin. It was what I needed to hear. Had 5, it crushed me, but she didn't stop there. And some of you may be feeling crushed today by the weight of your own sin, and you're trying to be good enough. You will never be good enough. Period. While you were still sinning, Christ died for you. This is the part that my mom went on to share. And she said, little Seth, Christ died for you in this. And he wants you to be his. Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. The God that we serve, the Jesus that's calling you, even in this moment, is kind and compassionate. He wants to meet you in your place of lostness. And he wants you to experience hope and freedom in him.